Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Ana Carvalho, and as usual, I'm here today with my colleague Inês Almeida to present you with this month's R&D session powered by EDP NEW. For those who don't know, EDP NEW is the research and development center of the EDP Group, and we are working on European R&D projects looking at innovative solutions for the decarbonization, the smartification, and the flexibility of the energy sector. We are super glad to have you here continually with us for these R&D sessions. For the ones joining us for the first time, we have been organizing this initiative since 2020, once per month. And the aim of these sections is basically to get together experts to discuss several topics regarding the future of energy, also talk about the challenges that we are now facing and the solutions that we are already putting into practice to revolutionize the energy sector.
Hi, everyone. Please note that these webinars are recorded and the previous sessions are available on our website. You just need to scan the QR codes on the slides and you will be able to watch them. Also, this session will be available in our website in a couple of days. For today's webinar, we want to encourage you to use our Q&A chat to ask your questions to our speakers. And at the end of the session, we will have a Q&A moment where the speakers will be able to answer you. With no further delays, we welcome you to this event and wish you all a great session, but not without first introducing you our moderator, Karen Narayan. Karen has a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from Virginia Tech University in the United States of America, and also holds a master's degree in renewable energy engineering from KTH Royal Institute of Technology in Stockholm, and also Institute Superior Technique from Lisbon with a master's thesis on the topic of the role of green hydrogen in long-distance transportation. Now, Karen, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Ines. Before we start, I just want to go over the agenda. So to provide us an introduction into the topic, we have Professor João Peixes Lopes from the Porto University. The second thing on the agenda would be an introduction to the IANUS project by Eduardo Rodrigues, which is a sustainable solutions for islands decarbonization from EDP NEW. And we have Tommaso Orlandini from EDP Renewables, the hydrogen business unit, to give us an introduction into the Greenwich to Atlantic project on renewable hydrogen and innovating for a better horizon. And finally, to end off the session, we will have a Q&A from the audience, and hopefully we'll get some interesting questions for our panel to answer. And to begin the session now, I'm going to introduce Professor João Peixes Lopes, who is a full professor at the Porto University, where he teaches in the graduate and postgraduate areas and is the director of the Sustainable Energy Systems PhD program. He's presently the associate director and coordinator of the Tech for Energy initiative at INESTEC, which is one of the largest R&D interface institutions of the University of Porto. He's also a member of the accompanying National Committee of Portuguese Recovery and Resilience Plan. Now, his main domains of research are related with large-scale integration of renewable power sources, power system dynamics, storage systems and the security of supply, microgeneration and microgrids, smart metering, electric vehicle grid integration, exploitation of power-to-power using hydrogen. He is also the co-editor and co-author of the book Electric Vehicle Integration into Modern Power Networks, which is edited by Springer. He is a fellow from the IEEE. He was a joint professor of the Iowa State University and visiting professor of the University of Pontificia Comillas in Madrid. Welcome, Professor. I would invite you to please share your slides so that we can go ahead with your presentation.
Okay, so good afternoon to all of you. Let me start by sharing my slides. First of all, I would like to thank EDP NEW for this invitation and for the opportunity to talk with you about the role of hydrogen in the future of the power systems. And I would like to start by talking a little bit about the role of hydrogen in the decarbonization of the economy. So I believe that most of the people already understood that this decarbonization will be made using electrification. So the electricity vector will be fundamental. But we will not be capable to do it if we rely only on electricity, and therefore we need to go for other solutions, and hydrogen is the approach. So because hydrogen is capable to create or to produce high temperature heats for the steel industry, for the cements, for glass, for ceramics. So is very important also for to feed the needs on energy for terrestrial long distance transportation, maritime transportation, aviation, and so on. But it is also quite important to see that hydrogen can be used in natural gas networks through the blending of hydrogen in these natural gas grids. It can be used in seasonal storage, and in this way to help in security of supply, and also to provide ancillary services, namely balancing services. If we think that part of the green hydrogen that can be produced can be injected in natural gas networks, so this means that we will need several new models capable to deal with the combined operation of gas networks, electricity networks, and gas networks. And in this case, for instance, it will be necessary to control the injection of renewable gases, as in this case, hydrogen, in order to keep the quality of the supply to the final end consumers in natural gas networks. So, and this means that new tools are required to cope with this new scenario, and so the system operators of the distribution gas companies, they need to use this type of solutions and these new approaches. It is also important to understand that, for instance, for Portugal, and most of you have heard about that, so we have very ambitious plans for the next years. And for 2030, or even before that, we are supposed to arrive to a target that is 80% of the electricity to be consumed will come from renewable power sources. And by 2050, we are supposed to be neutral in carbon. And this has to be done on the basis of shutting down fossil fuel power plants, but also with the main concern, that is the concern of keeping security of supply. Because if we continue developing our power system by integrating renewable variable in time generation sources, then it may happen that in some situations where the sky is cloudy, there is no wind, and in those conditions, we may arrive to a situation where we have no capacity, we have no energy to satisfy the supply. And this cannot happen, which means that dispatchability is very, very important. And so this requires a regular assessment of the security of supply, and there are techniques to do that, like Monte Carlo chronological simulation techniques that allow to identify when, for certain configurations of operation, the system has not enough reliability. So also, and I can show you some pictures of some research we have developed in my research unit for the simulation of the operation of the year 2040, where you can see here, so this is the expected operation and the evolution of the load along the year to 2040. And in this, sorry, this is for the year to 2030, but anyway, the approach is the same. So we have identified that if we adopt the same portfolio of generation that I have described before, with a strong presence of renewable power sources, namely the ones that are variable in time, we will arrive at a situation where we will have an excess of renewable generation. And this excess of renewable generation can be between 2 and 3 terawatt-hour, which means curtailment of renewable generation. And this curtailment is identified here in this picture. Let me just, okay, laser pointer. Yes, so this corresponds to the excess of renewable generation. At the same time, it happens that during, and by the way, this happens during spring and summer, while during winter time, we can see that we need to dispatch some power plants that may not be available. So we need dispatchability. We need to have natural gas combined cycle gas turbines to be capable to operate. And so we could do, what we could do would be to perform what I called here seasonal storage, that is to pass some of these excesses of renewable energy from spring and summer to the winter time. And of course, this can be done by using hydrogen. So hydrogen will be the way to store the surplus of renewable generation. We could store it in salt cavern facilities that we have in Portugal, and later use it with combined cycle gas turbines that would be reconditioned or even fuel cells, and to use it later to produce the dispatchable electric power that we need to keep the security of supply levels. Another project where we have been involved is the Green H2 Atlantic, and I know that this is going to be described in more detail here, but I just would like to mention that at least from the side of Inestec, we are dealing with the identification of the optimum trajectory of the operation of the electrolyzers in order to operate on the basis of renewable generation coming from solar PV plants and wind power plants, which means that it is necessary to have excellent forecasting tools that will define the way how the electrolyzers should operate. And at the same time, what we are doing is to evaluate the possibility of the electrolyzers to produce or to provide ancillary services, in this case balancing ancillary services. And what I'm going to show you is the output of some preliminary studies where we have studied the possibility of using a large fleet of electrolyzers in the Iberian Peninsula for the year 2040, where we will have a few gigawatts of electrolyzers in operation. And in this case, this is a representation of the dynamic system of the European system together with the Iberian system. So this is the Central European system. This is the Iberian system, described in a more detailed way. And these are the electrolyzers. And so these electrolyzers are described here with this more detailed model. In a way that we are capable to distinguish between alkaline electrolyzers and PEM electrolyzers according to the way how they respond. And so this is just to show you that in the future, if we take profit from the presence of the electrolyzers, which are in fact dynamic loads, they will be capable to provide frequency ancillary services. And this will, for instance, in the case of a sudden disconnection of a large unit in the Iberian Peninsula, and this is a case that I just mentioned, we simulated for the year 2040 with a fleet of 12 gigawatt of electrolyzers in operation in the Iberian Peninsula. What we can witness is that the frequency excursions that the system will face will be considerably reduced if we consider the presence of the electrolyzers participating in primary frequency control. And obviously, if they participate in primary frequency control, they can provide also secondary frequency control and tertiary frequency control. So they are, in fact, dynamic loads that are very interesting for the operation of the power system of the future. And if we consider that the electrolyzers together with the plants that feed them. I mean, so solar PV generation and wind power generation together, they make a kind of a virtual power plant. So in fact, we can have this virtual power plant capable to provide both upward and downward frequency services without very reduced opportunity costs. So these are just ideas of what can be done in terms of exploiting the hydrogen, and in this case, the electrolyzers. Just a brief overview of the testing we are doing in our laboratory in Porto, where we have a power hardware in the loop set up, and where we are now installing a small electrolyzer of 10 kilowatts. And so this electrolyzer is coupled via power amplifier to a real-time simulator. And we are so trying to get with a real system how the electrolyzer will really respond, not only from the simulation point of view that I just described you, but also in a real conditions. Of course, it's a miniature, but it will be real conditions. And so I know that my time is short, so I would like to conclude by saying we are growing in complexity regarding the way how energy systems will evolve. So new challenges are popping up, which requires the creation of more and new mathematical models for the emerging technologies, like the case of the ones that are related with hydrogen, I mean electrolyzers and H2 storage solutions. Also quite important is the way how to address the blending of renewable gases, and I mean in this case green hydrogen, the blending of hydrogen in natural gas grids, which also requires proper modeling and advanced control solutions. We are pretty sure that green hydrogen will foster sector coupling and will contribute to fully decarbonize the electric generation portfolio while keeping security of supply. And this is very important because, as I tried to describe you very shortly, it will be through the use of hydrogen that will provide a dispatchable solution for the operation of the system that will be possible to fully decarbonize the portfolio generation. And finally, my last message related with what I've just described, that is electrolyzers can be used as dynamic loads, providing frequency ancillary services to the electrical grids of the future. And I'm concluding. I think I was capable to keep my time, and I will be glad to answer any questions you may have at the end. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot for your great presentation, Professor, and for the great insights to your conclusions. We will be moving forward to our next speaker, which is Eduardo Rodriguez from our very own EDP NEW, and he'll be giving us a short presentation and an introduction into the EANUS project. So Eduardo Rodriguez holds a master's degree in electrical and computer engineering. He, with a specialization in power system dynamics and stability, reliability, and planning. His professional background is in R&D engineering, focused on innovation projects related to smart grids, advanced management, protection, automation and control, microgrid resilience and flexibility, energy and balancing markets, res integration, and battery energy storage. Thank you for being here, Eduardo, and I'd request you to please share your slides so you can present the EANUS project to us.
Great. Hello, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, Karen. So I will present share my presentation. Can you see it?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, great. So I'm Eduardo, and I work with EDP NEW, and I'm currently involved in EANUS, European Commission funded project focused on sustainable solutions for islands decarbonization. So EANUS, in a nutshell, general overview. So the mode of the project is integrated solutions for the decarbonization and smartification of islands. The project started in October 2020. We will have the project implemented through 4 years. We were funded under a general call aligned with the decarbonization of energy systems in geographical islands. The project consortium is composed by 34 partners from 9 different European countries, and technically the main focus of the project is to deploy and demonstrate our solutions and use cases in 2 lighthouse islands, Ameland in the Netherlands and Terceira in Portugal. We also have 3 fellow islands that will look into the results and outcomes of Janus and assess the replicability and scalability potential of the project and its solutions. Those fellow islands are Lampedusa in Italy, Bora Bora in French Polynesia, and Nisidus in Greece. So briefly on the overall concept of the project. So we have technically the project split in 3 transition tracks, targeting energy efficiency and grid support for extremely high RES penetration scenarios, the decarbonization through the electrification and support from non-emitting fuels, and empower local energy communities at the Lighthouse Islands. Each of these transition tracks is also associated with different use cases that we will try to deploy and demonstrate there. On the energy efficiency, we are mainly focused on self-consumption maximization, optimal dispatch and intraday service provision, storage use for fast response ancillary services, and demand side management to support power quality and congestions. Targeting the decarbonization through electrification, we are mainly looking into the transport sector and large industrial continuous loads. Also to circular economy, this depends on the legacy assets that we have in each island. In the case of Janus and considering the Lighthouse Islands, we are actually demonstrating technologies and use cases. We are mainly targeting waste streams and gas grid decarbonization. And also in Ameland, since we are far in the north of Europe, we also have heating networks that we will also try to model, study, and help decarbonize. And then the last transition track is mainly linked to active citizen engagement and fostering of local energy communities. The main objectives of the project are linked to facilitate seamless adoption of high-res penetration scenarios, using synergetic operation of energy resources and carriers through a virtual power plant framework, demonstrate specific technology-driven interventions that are linked to these 3 transition tracks and the 9 use cases we designed, guide EU islands decision makers in the design of cost-effective and feasibility action plans for their decarbonization. This is also or strongly linked to the replicability and scalability plans that we are working on, and that later in the project the fellow islands will try to cope with. Also engage EU islanders in the transition towards a low carbon economy in their islands, and ensure an highly replicability potential of Janus results. So the main impacts expected from the project are linked with the significant reduction in fossil fuel consumption at the islands. This is a huge challenge, particularly in islands that are completely isolated, so their electrical power and energy systems don't have connections with the mainland grid. Then also try to scale up the uptake of validated solutions on similar geographical islands with the same characteristics, and where also same problems emerge, to facilitate the creation and increase the number of renewable energy communities at those islands, since demand response and distributed generation are key to help or assist these systems moving towards the energy transition and enhance stability of power networks. Now I would like to briefly present you our Lighthouse Islands and give you a general context of the of their power systems to better understand what we will try to implement and demonstrate there. So the first is Ameland, located in the West Frisian Islands in the Wadden Sea, the Netherlands. It's a population of 3,000 people and an area of 58 square kilometers. Some remarks on the power system at the Ameland. So it's an island system, but connected to mainland electricity and gas grids. Some legacy assets already deployed there include huge solar farm, battery energy storage systems, and distributed generation. Since in Ameland there are a lot of energy communities already. And some characteristics from the load, typical load found in Ameland. So the energy consumption fluctuates significantly throughout the year, and it's very seasonal due to tourism. The power exchange with the mainland is key, and has a peak of 6 megawatt from mainland to the island, and 2.5 megawatt whenever the generation is higher than demand at the island. Moving now to Terceira, our second lighthouse island, located in the Azores archipelago in North Atlantic Ocean, Portugal, has a population significantly higher than Ameland, 55,000 people, and it's also a bigger island with 402 square kilometers. The electric power system in Terceira is completely isolated. They have geothermal power plant, wind farms, and battery energy storage systems deployed there, and these are the main legacy assets that we will actually link to the demonstrator in Terceira. And some local characteristics. So the average yearly energy consumption is 170 gigawatt hour. The peak demand is higher than 30 megawatt, and the energy mix is strongly fossil fuel dependent, with more than 62% of the energy generated at the island provided by thermal power plants. Then other sources include renewable energy sources, geothermal, and waste. The renewable energy sources are mainly wind farm provided by wind farms. Moving now to the implementation of the project, and just wanted to provide you a brief overview of the innovative technologies and the technical approach that we are following to deploy these demonstrators. So we have in the picture the main architecture we are implementing at the Lighthouse Islands that will foster the development of the 9 different use cases. We have a main toolkit, which the main component is an intelligent virtual power plant that will aim to orchestrate the operation of different field level assets. And those field level assets are mainly linked to supply, demand, and other distributed energy resources. And here we are mainly exploring the H2 economy and storage, mechanical and electrochemical storage. So a brief overview on software-based solutions. These intelligent virtual power plant architecture will deliver the main control, monitoring and control modules that will assist us on the orchestrated control of the islanded power systems. So the IVPP is a physical and virtual integration software featuring a wide variety of assets that can be linked to it as extensive communication interfaces, and operates in an orchestrated way, being able to assist real-time system operation or advise the operators. On an hardware-based approach, we will have different technologies deployed at field level. Maybe the main highlights will go to the hybrid transformer, the flywheel, and the phase change material heat batteries that will be deployed in Terceira. So the hybrid transformer, which is an independent phase control transformer that is able to, through power electronics, compensate reactive power and deliver a stepless voltage regulation. The flywheel, the innovative aspect is the ABLS rotor that the solution incorporates based on magnetic bearings in vacuum. And the heat batteries are immersed heat exchangers into phase change material, delivering higher efficiency than other solutions. In Amland, we will explore also different technologies with some highlights linked to the tidal kite. So we will deploy there an underwater kite covering a large harvesting area and bio-based saline batteries, so completely recycled without lithium or cobalt. Then a brief overview of what will happen in the Lighthouse Islands and into what the fellow islands will look into. So the IVPP will be deployed at both Lighthouse Islands in Amland and in Terceira. Then we'll have in Amland a link to some legacy assets like the solar farm and battery energy storage systems. Apart from the tidal kite and saline batteries, we will also have micro CHP systems linked to the demonstrator environment, methane fuel cells, and from the different energy communities already existent in Amland, we will also link residential hybrid heat pumps and PV systems. Similar approach on the demand side will happen in Terceira, where we will also install PV systems with the gateways, so home energy management systems. We will reach 40 residential end users that will be receiving these different systems together with the residential electrochemical and heat batteries. Then, apart from the hybrid transformer and the flywheel, we will also have smart energy routers, which are smart PV inverters, electric water heaters, and vehicle-to-grid EV chargers. The three Lighthouse Islands, considering their particular context and the scope aligned with the energy transition envisioned for those islands, we'll look into different perspectives of the project, use cases implementation, particular technologies, in order to try to find out the best way to invest in projects or initiatives that can allow them to cope with the targets they have for their energy transition objectives. Finally, some highlights on Janus. So we just entered in the second half of the project. So during the next year and a half, we'll be deploying. We are already deploying. We will start with the demonstration at the Lighthouse Islands really pretty soon, and the project will move forward with its technical objectives, which are mainly linked to design and test highly replicable advancements in smart energy systems, and to also to test conventional and innovative technologies fully integrated within this intelligent virtual power plant environment, and fully deployed and demonstrate the 9 use cases that we designed for the 2 Lighthouse Islands. And a major outcome of the project will also be the energy transition plans that both Lighthouse Islands and fellow islands will contribute to, enlightened by the success and the outcomes of the implementations that we will deploy at our demonstrations. And I guess that's it. So you can follow the project on social media, where we have all the, particularly in our website, we have all the public deliverables available. And I hope to hear from you later on during the Q&A session. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Eduardo, for the presentation and for all the great insights on the implementations of all the innovative solutions that you are currently applying for Janusz.
Welcome. Thank you.
Moving forward, we have our final speaker, who will be talking more about renewable hydrogen and the Green H2 Atlantic project. We have Tommaso Orlandini. Tommaso is currently a project manager in the project development and execution team at EDP Renewables, the hydrogen business unit. where he is responsible for the implementation of several hydrogen projects and is currently the project manager for the Green Issue Atlantic project, where EDP is the project coordinator. Previously, Tommaso worked with us as an R&D engineer at EDP NEW, where he was leading several international R&D activities in the areas of flexibility, energy storage, and hydrogen. Tommaso holds a master's degree in sustainable energy engineering from the Technical University of Denmark. Thanks for being here, Tommaso. Please share your presentation so we can hear more about Green Issue Atlantic.
Thank you, Karen, and thanks to EDP NEW for the invitation, and very nice to see a lot of familiar faces. So let me share my screen very quickly. Can you see it?
Yes, go ahead.
Perfect. So first of all, thanks again for the introduction. Before deep diving into the project, even if there was already a short slide about it, I wanted just to give an overview of the challenge and try to frame a bit the project between, let's say, the overall ambition and goal. So as of today, the majority of hydrogen is produced from steam methane reforming, so using natural gas. It's commonly called gray hydrogen. And to achieve carbon neutrality and all the European targets, we need to change the let's say the way hydrogen is produced, and green hydrogen is one of the main solution and alternatives. Green hydrogen employs the use of electrolysis and the use of renewable sources to be classified as green. And this one will be critical to make this switch and eventually find also other applications for green hydrogen. We also had some example before from the professor from Professor Pesas Lopes. One of the main goal is to start scaling up the production of green hydrogen, and an important milestone is to develop and demonstrate 100 megawatt size electrolyzer. This, of course, will imply development, installation, and operation, and mainly also the testing of the 100 megawatt scale electrolyzer in real life conditions, which might lead to several challenges, for example, from the fluctuation of the renewable sources. This one to actually develop successfully a 100 megawatt electrolyzer, there is the need of a lot of R&D, a lot of research, and also the development of larger modules of electrolyzer compared to the state of the art. And we will also need to study, for example, the possible use of oxygen, which is one of the side products from the electrolysis, and also the heat, for example, which is produced as well as a side product from the electrolyzer. The electrolyzer will also need to be tested in real condition, and performance, durability, and also how they can be operated dynamically still needs to be assessed and demonstrated. So within this framework, this one is a little bit the goal of Green H2 Atlantic project, which is a first of a kind project, and which started about 2 years ago when we got awarded by the European Commission an amount of 30 million euros to start developing the project. The goal of the project is to develop, install, and operate a 100 megawatt electrolyzer, to be more precise, 96 megawatt electrolyzer. And the electrolyzer will be installed in Sines coal-fired power plant, owned by EDP, and will supply two main end users: the Galp refinery, which is located close by, and the remaining part will be injected into the natural gas grid. And an important part of the project is also on the repurposing of the coal power plant. I think most of the people here know that today the coal power plant in Sines is not functioning and is being decommissioned. And so possibly this one might be, or hopefully it will be, an alternative to repurpose the plant and use part of the facilities that are already present. Here down below, you can see the promoters and overall the partners of the project, with a total of 13 partners. And this one is a mix between industrial companies and also R&D centers. And for example, Ines Tech is one of the partners of the project, and the role was also described before. In this project, we have several ambitious objectives. First of all, again, we want to develop a 100 megawatt green hydrogen production facility to supply to end user, a refinery, and the remaining part will be blended into the natural gas grid. One of the other objectives is, as I mentioned, to repurpose Sines coal power plant infrastructure and the assets that are already present. Here in the figure on the right, you can see some of the components, but I think I have another slide that go more in detail on the facilities. Finally, we want to produce RED II compliant green hydrogen, meaning that we will need to produce hydrogen from renewable energy. And it will be a mix of hybrid sources, so a mix of PV and onshore wind. Another objective of the project is to develop and integrate an energy management system. We called it AI, Enhanced Advanced Hydrogen Management System, AHYMS. This one will be key for the optimal operation of the plant, and also to maximize the absorption of renewables and also deal with possible intermittencies. Here below, there are some key figures of the project. We are planning to, we target to produce about 10 kilotons per year of green hydrogen. This one will need about 200 megawatt of new renewable capacity to be installed. And overall, our target is to reduce the CO2 emission by 61 kilotons of CO2 equivalent per year. And this one will also need to a reduction of LNG import, as we will inject part of the hydrogen in the grid. And finally, of course, it's also important to highlight that this project will also create direct and indirect jobs within the facilities in Sines, and with possible replications. So this one is a bit more detail of the existing facilities in the power plant that will be reused. Let me just take the pointer so I can show easily. So there is already present a water treatment building with water tanks. This one will be used to desalinate the water, which is sourced by the water intake and pumping station that you can see here on the right, on the left, and the water outlet, which are those parts here that you can see at the bottom of the image. We also plan to use the existing electrical connection point to the grid, and there are some other existing workshops and building facilities that will be used for the project. A little bit more in detail on the technology that will be developed. We have a dedicated partner, which is also a partner of the Green Deal project, so of the European funded part of the project, which is McPhee. They will provide a 96 megawatt alkaline electrolyzer. This electrolyzer is composed of 4 modules of 16 megawatt. Each module contains 16 stacks of 1 megawatt each, and each stack is arranged in clusters of 4 megawatt. As I mentioned, is an alkaline electrolyzer, so the targets of performance of this technology are in line with the state of the art and with the requirements of the Green Deal call. So it will have a delivery pressure of 30 bar. It will work with high current density, higher than 0.5 ampere per square centimeters. It will allow wide range of flexibility within a short response time. This one will be key to adjust with the renewable production. It will have an efficiency of 4.9, I think it's 49 kilowatt hour per kilograms of hydrogen produced. So sorry for the error. And it will have a degradation of 0.12% over 1,000 hours of operation. And finally, it will also, with the structure that I mentioned, so with 16 megawatt modules, including 16 stacks, it will also reduce the footprint and so the space that the electrolyzer will occupy. I wanted also quickly to present the hydrogen management system. This one will be developed by ENGIE. ENGIE is also a partner of the project and is composed of two main parts, an energy management system and a digital twin. The digital twin will be very important also before operation, as it will be able to simulate the behavior of the equipment of the plant, and so it will also be important for the financial close of the project, and also for preparing the optimal operation of the electrolyzer, and in short, what to expect from the behavior of the electrolyzer. The energy management system, on the other hand, it will be key during operation. And it will propose optimal set point to the electrolyzer to produce hydrogen. And as a matter of fact, so it will optimize the use of renewables, and eventually will also optimize the not only the use but also the economics that is behind it. Another important aspect of the AHYMS is that it will allow to fulfill the RED II requirements to produce green hydrogen. There are some very strict requirements, and this tool is also needed to actually prove that the hydrogen produced is green and comes directly from renewable sources. Finally, I just wanted to give a quick overview of the timeline of the project. The project started in December 2021. We are going through a development phase, which will end up with an FID decision, which will happen in 2024. And then there will be 2 years of engineering phase and construction, which will end in 2026, where there will be 2 years of demonstration and operation. At the end of those 2 years, it will be the end of the Green Deal demonstration. And then, of course, we are also planning to have longer term operations until the end of the project. I don't know if I am within the time. I hope I didn't speak too much, but
I think we're okay. I think we're okay. We still have 10 minutes for a quick Q&A.
Okay, then thanks. I'm looking forward.
Thanks a lot, Tommaso, for the presentation.
Thank you.
We're going to move forward to the Q&A part. I believe Eduardo has already been proactive in answering some of the questions in the chat. But there was one that I can ask him from Julia Pereira of EDP NEW. She asks, what are the main challenges associated with the replication potential when considering the innovative solutions tested in the 2 lighthouse islands? Example, like very different climates, electric grids, industry maybe. So what are the main challenges associated with the replication?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yeah, I'll guess, well, Julie already provided some highlights on the answer. And that's actually one of the reasons why it was important from day one to have in the project not only lighthouse islands where technology deployment and demonstrations will happen, but also linked fellow islands that will look into what will happen during the project, and we'll try to extract the best of it, considering their own contexts. So yeah, I will say that the main barrier to the replicability will be the diversity of endogenous conditions found at the islands. For instance, climate, it's a huge driver, but also load profile, typical load profile. If it is too seasonal, it will be hard because you will need to design and to foresee a system that will be scaled up not always necessarily, I will say. So load profile and main sectors driving the local economy will also be a serious requirement to consider when assessing the replicability potential of the different solutions. But obviously, within the project we are testing solutions applied to different sectors of the electrical power and energy system, as I explained. So for some geographies, demand-driven approaches will be the best ones. For others, you'll just need to tackle the main challenges linked to the grid itself and to the generation mix. So yeah, those will be the best, the main barriers to overcome, I will say.
I hope that answers your question, Julia. Thanks a lot, Eduardo. I think there's one more question for you from Felipe Silva. There's a discussion on having a more centralized or decentralized approach to energy production. And Janusz, you are considering a more of a mixed approach. So can you share your personal thoughts on centralized versus decentralized energy production for islands, and also the reasons why you have considered a mixed approach for this project?
Yeah, so again, thank you for the question. I'll guess, well, it is an old question, but it relies on the specific context we have and how far we can go with this decentralization approach. Because, for example, in Janusz we have 2 lighthouse islands, but they are pretty different, since in Amland we are connected to the mainland power network, and we will be always strongly dependent on that link, but at the same time is a safeguard, let's say, to have that link there, so we can move forward with decentralization. Actually, we already have a lot of energy communities there, so with that safeguard provided by the link to the mainland, we can go forward and foster distributed energy resources and distributed generation locally. On isolated systems, as the one in Terceira and generally in Açores, they are huge test beds to deploy and test those solutions, or solutions that we aim to demonstrate, but we are always limited due to stability that must be always safeguarded, and to the local resources that we have. For example, in Açores we have a lot of wind in most of the islands, which is, as you know, a non-conventional renewable energy source, really volatile. So the degree of dependence that we will be able to achieve from fossil fuels will be hard to estimate. So the main goal of the project is to try these different approaches and see or check the ones that are better fit to the specific context. But yeah, going straight forward with an answer to Philippe's question, I'll guess also will depend on the overall context that we have and the particular conditions of the electrical power and energy system at the islands.
Perfect. Thanks, Robert. We have a question for Professor Lopes. The question is, can you discuss any recent advancements or breakthroughs in green hydrogen technology that are particularly exciting or promising for the future?
Well, this is a very general question, but what I would say is that we are really witnessing the possibility of using a new technology in order to help manage the power system of the future. As I described in my presentation, there are a few challenges that are related with the fact that the decarbonization of the portfolio generation is related with the large-scale integration of variable renewable generation. And this means that we will have to face the problem of some excess of renewable generation. So this means that if we don't have load for this generation, we will have to curtail. And so instead of curtailing, we could store. And hydrogen is in fact one solution to store this extra renewable energy that cannot be stored in conventional solutions like hydro pumping or batteries, because these devices will operate according to mainly daily cycles or maybe weekly cycles, I mean. And so the fact is that there will be a considerable surplus of renewable generation. And so this is very much related with the concept of seasonal storage, which can only be performed via hydro pumping storage, but this would require enormous capacities of water storage, which collides with environmental impacts. And if instead we try to use hydrogen, although the overall efficiency is low, could be even less than 40%, but even though it is interesting because we could store some energy and use it later as a dispatchable way, and in this way to keep the security of supply, because these power plants that would be operated using hydrogen would operate only whenever necessary in order to assure that supply is always met. So this is clearly one of the technological advancements that we need to exploit further, and also related with the fact that electrolyzers are dynamic loads, and they can provide balancing services. So we may think that in the near future, we may operate the electric power systems with almost no synchronous generation in the system. And so this means that we will have to identify new solutions to balance the operation of the system, to keep supply and generation, and to balance both. And the electrolyzers are exactly one way to cope with that, because they are very flexible loads. Of course, that we could also evolve on the usage, the final usage of hydrogen as a way to help producing high temperatures heat in some industries, like the ones I mentioned, glass, ceramics, but also steel industry. Steel industry is quite relevant because 7% of the CO2 emissions in the world come from the production of steel. So steel is produced with the coal. So the conventional procedures are these ones. So if it is possible, and there are already some experiments being developed, especially in Sweden, on the development of the solutions based on the direct reduction of iron, where hydrogen reacts with the iron and creates a certain iron that is later made to use to make steel. And in this case, there are no CO2 emissions at all. By the way, what results is water again. So it's very important to understand that hydrogen is really a vector, but it is necessary to understand that it's a complementary vector to the electricity vector to cope with the decarbonization needs. And by decarbonization, I want to stress that decarbonization in this case means CO2 avoidance, CO2 emission avoidance, because we will always need carbon. carbon is behind all the development of our economies. So what we are concerned about is with CO2 emissions. And so in this case, hydrogen, with all the technological developments that are related with, will help to cope with this problem that we have.
Thanks a lot for that answer, Professor. Maybe to wrap up the session, we have one final question that I'd like to ask Tommaso. It's a bit of a long one, so bear with me. The question is regarding non-electrifiable industries such as the cement, steel, or certain chemical industries. How viable is hydrogen in their respective decarbonization? Even if hydrogen produced via PEM or solid electrolysis becomes cost-effective, there are still certain barriers to decarbonization that hydrogen might have or might face in terms of the cement industry or coal-based industries, such as steel. So how would you like to provide some insight into these industries where hydrogen might have some trouble decarbonizing?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the question. So just a disclaimer, I'm not an expert in industrial processes, but I can try to answer. So to my knowledge, hydrogen is already used in most of those processes, for example, in the steel production. Today, as I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, is produced from steam methane reforming. Usually the way those plants are operated to produce gray hydrogen are very, and also the industrial processes are base load. So they have a constant production, very fixed with, let's say, little flexibility to adjust. So probably one of the challenges would be to produce green hydrogen and with intermittent renewable sources, and adapt it to the demand of those industrial end users. Having said that, I think I'm not sure why alkaline electrolysis was removed from the question, but I would also include that alkaline technology is probably it is together with PEM the two technologies that are mostly developed and advanced. Also solid oxide, but is let's say a little bit it's a little bit more development. But as I was saying, I would say in general, those are so non-electrifiable industries, in my view, and also in EDP view, are, let's say, the first type of end users that green hydrogen needs to target. Because as I mentioned, they already use hydrogen as of today, so it's just a matter of substituting the product. Of course, one of the solutions to avoid is, let's say, intermittent production with the strict demand of the end user is the introduction of and use of storage, of hydrogen storage. This one can be in very different forms, gaseous, liquefied, or through other hydrogen carriers. Usually, since hydrogen is used directly in industries, doesn't make sense to convert it into, in this case, into other hydrogen carriers. But I would say that the use of storage would be key to of hydrogen storage would be key to adjust the demand of those industries. I hope I answered your question. I was also reading. Okay, you left out CCS. Okay, I agree to leave it out. So
Thanks a lot
for the question.
I believe that wraps up our Q&A session. I would love to thank the panel members for their presence and for their amazing presentations and their answers to all the questions that our audience had. I'd like to hand it back to our Ines and Anna, our in-house R&D session experts. And I'd love to thank you all for being here. And obviously, again, to the panel, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you to the panel. Unfortunately, we are running out of time, so I would like to invite our speakers to reply to the answer to the questions of our attendees directly in the chat. So we are concluding. Thank you everyone for your active participation. Again, remind you that the session will soon be available in our websites. And to finish, we just want to share with you that the next month we will have another webinar on the topic of European data spaces towards an eco-friendly energy sector. Enjoy your afternoon and thank you so much.